This case is more about the effects of childhood experiences and how detrimental they can be even to full-grown adults. How a good and innocent boy turned out to be one of the most prolific serial killers and rapists in South Africa. Welcome back to my channel, guys. This is True Crime and Chill with me, Prince Study. So I hope you had a wonderful week so far, and if you are new here, hello and welcome. My name is Prince Study, and this is where I come to tell you about some of the most shocking true crime cases that happened in South Africa. Some you may have heard of, some not so much, but you will not believe that you never got to hear of them. So if you want to be part of our True Crime Chiller family and you want to keep hearing from me every week, I would highly suggest that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads, and you can just get to hang out with us whenever I upload a new video. Now let's get into it. Now before we get started, let me go ahead and just give out a bit of a content warning. This case is not for sensitive viewers as it contains content of violence, sexual abuse, as well as murder. So if any of these are triggering to you in any way, please do exit the video, and I hope I will see you again on my future uploads. Do take care of yourself because your mental health and your emotional well-being matter to me, and that is a fact. This case is about a man known as Khangayi Sedumedi, who was born in 1977 in Gugulethu, Cape Town. And this man terrorized the women of Cape Town between the years of 2011 and 2015. Khangayi is the son of a Shona man known as Adam Opaka and a Xhosa woman known as Jacqueline Sedumedi. Khangayi was, however, raised by his grandmother along with his other cousins, and his grandmother always made sure that they always went to church regularly. So he was an all-around good kid who grew up being raised by his loving grandmother. It was said that he was so peaceful that even his childhood friends gave him the nickname of Jesus because he never wanted to fight anyone, and as a matter of fact, he always tried at all costs to avoid conflict. So he was just a peaceful kid who never wanted to get into a confrontation with anyone. So it makes you wonder how a kid like this got to turn out the way he ended up later on in his life. But luckily, we'll get to answer that question in this case. So in 1990, Khangayi's mother, Jacqueline, disappeared without a trace. And to this day, no one knows where she ended up. And this had an effect on Khangayi as he was just 13 years old when his mom just disappeared. After his mother's disappearance, this is when he started to become a bit different, and he became more shy and more isolated from everyone else, and even most of his other qualities showed that he changed, but not in a good way. Khangayi became so isolated that it was almost impossible to even take pictures of him. It was said that even his own family never had pictures of him. That's just how different he became after his mother's disappearance. But when you put his weird personality and new behavior aside, Khangayi was described as a hardworking and ambitious man who was passionate about Orlando Pirates and who had a deep and meaningful friendship with the man he ended up meeting in 2003. So much so that this man ended up marrying one of his sister cousins as the years went by. So the people that knew him trusted him. They thought that he was a good person, he was a good man, and their kids loved him, and he also loved his family. He loved his cousin sisters, he loved his friend, and he was just an all-around good guy. And no one could have expected him to turn out the way he did. And he worked as a security guard before he got arrested. So between November of 2011 and January of 2015, there was a series of attacks around Century City and Kensington in Cape Town. These attacks mostly occurred around the train station that was near Century City, where a total of 8 women were raped and 6 of them murdered. The youngest victim of these attacks was found out to be a 15-year-old girl who was also sexually assaulted and suffered a lot of physical assault injuries. The bodies of the 6 victims were found in a field near Acre Road in Cape Town between February and November of 2014. And all these women were found naked with their hands tied behind their backs. After some investigating was done and some evidence was gathered, Khangayi's family, which included his long-term friend and along with his cousins and their children, received a very shocking visit from the police when they came to tell them that Khangayi was a wanted man for the number of attacks that have been happening around the area of Century City. And I think what really shocked them about this visit was that they all knew Khangayi to be a man of a few words, a man who kept to himself, but a man who loved his family, his friends, and the kids that were all around him. They trusted him, and they never expected anything like this from someone like him, of all people. But I guess it really shows you that you never really do know a person, do you? Like, you just could never know what a person is capable of, no matter how good they are or how good they seem to be. I was just shocked by the visit from the police. But then they also mentioned to the police that Khangayi had a tendency of disappearing for long periods of time during the years. And whenever he came back, the only explanation he would have is that he was just around. So he had a tendency of just disappearing for months on end with no valid explanation. So could he have been committing all these crimes he was being accused of during his times of solitude and disappearances? Maybe this was the question that his family was starting to ask themselves after the police revealed that he was now a wanted man. And as a matter of fact, even when the police came looking for him, he was gone. He was not there. He had been gone for a while. And so when he finally came back home one night, his family decided to do the right thing and they let the police know that Khangayi was back. And that is how he finally got arrested. So on the 5th of January in 2015, Khangayi was taken in for some questioning, but then after more investigations were done, he was found in possession of some of the belongings of the victims. And further evidence showed that his DNA matched the DNA that was collected at the crime scenes, and also his phone records were also showing that he was indeed the Century City serial killer and rapist. Khangayi was charged with a total of 23 charges, including 8 charges of rape, 4 charges of murder, 2 charges of kidnapping, and 5 charges of robbery with aggravating circumstances, and also attempted robbery with aggravating circumstances, and also attempted rape and assault. So this guy was pretty busy during those years between 2011 and 2015. However, 2 of the 23 charges ended up being dropped when Khangayi took a plea deal and admitted guilt to only 21 of the 23 charges. And furthermore, in court, Khangayi ended up explaining how he managed to get a hold of his victims between 2011 and 2015. He said that he was looking for young job seekers who were desperate for employment. He would then approach them with a lie of possibly finding job opportunities for them. And as a young person desperate for employment, of course, when someone comes to you and says, I may have a couple of job opportunities for you, you would be more excited than you would be cautious. So it was pretty easy for him to get these young women and to trap them and do what he did to them. He would then ask for the young lady's contacts so that he can find them whenever he has something for them. And of course, later on, he would call them saying that he has found some job interviews for them. And then he would organize a scheduled meeting on specific dates to meet up with whoever would be his victim at that time. And when they finally meet up, he would then ambush them and he would rob, rape, and sometimes kill some of his victims. And then at some point, he ended up mentioning the real reason he started doing all the things that he did to women between 2011 and 2015. And that reason stemmed from the disappearance of his mother when he was just 13 years old. So he then said that the reason he started raping, robbing, and killing women was that his mom had disappeared when he was just a young boy at 13, like I mentioned earlier in the video. And he said this made him feel lonely and isolated throughout the years. And so committing the crimes he committed only made him feel better about his situation. Yeah, that's the real reason why he did what he did. It just made him feel better. Khangayi was then convicted on the 9th of June in 2016, and he was then found guilty of all charges against him, and he was sentenced to 7 life sentences in prison and an additional 40 more years. So he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. And yeah, guys, that is the case of the Century City serial killer and rapist Khangayi Sedumedi. It was a really messed up case, hey, I'm not gonna lie. And the reasoning behind it, the fact that he only did it because his mom disappeared and he felt lonely, it just shows you just how messed up people can be. And it gives you an even better insight into the minds of serial killers and all these people who do these things. Some of them do them due to childhood traumas. And even though that doesn't justify what they did, it's really fascinating to know that childhood traumas and experiences can have such a detrimental effect on full grown adults. But at least justice was served for the victims, those who survived, and those who unfortunately lost their lives. And at the end of the day, that is all that mattered. And what didn't make any sense to me is why he left some of his victims to survive, because at some point in the case he mentioned that he only killed the other ones because he didn't want to be identified. So it really makes no sense how he let the others survive. But we should be happy about the fact that he did let them survive and they are out there today living their lives. But justice was served for everyone who suffered at the hands of this horrible, horrible man. So yeah, guys, I will see you guys again in my next upload, and thank you for chilling with me throughout the end of the video. And again, if you are new here, please support the channel by subscribing to it if you want to be a true crime chiller with the rest of us. And yeah, I will see you again in my next video. Cheers.